I will now call to order the November 16th, 2023 meeting of the Salem Historic Landmarks Commission. Will the recorder please take roll call?
Commissioner Fuller. Here. Commissioner Inman.
Present.
Commissioner Melinda Timber.
Here.
Commissioner Strauss.
Here.
Commissioner Strong.
Here.
And Commissioner Zimmerman, Kerman, Morris, and Fox are all excused via quorum.
The commission will now hear testimony from the public concerning items not on the agenda. Is there anyone wishing to speak at this time? May I please have a motion to approve the minutes? So moved. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Inman moves to approve the minutes as written, and Commissioner Strauss seconds. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. I will now open the public hearing for historic review case number HIS 17.
23.
HIS 23-22. So I'm just looking at the script. Would the recorder please read the hearing procedures statement into the record?
This is a public hearing to consider case number HIS 23-22 for property located at 170 Liberty Street Northeast. The criteria applicable to this hearing are listed in Salem Revised Code, Chapter 230.045D, storefronts in commercial historic districts. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing with statements or evidence sufficient to afford the Historic Landmarks Commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the hearings officer on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony. The Historic Landmarks Commission will then either continue the public hearing or leave the record open for at least 7 days.
Are there any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts that any of the commissioners would like to declare at this time? Commissioner Strauss.
I've done research on this building before, but it won't affect my ability to be impartial.
Okay. May we now have the staff presentation?
Good evening, Kimberly Fitzgerald, Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Salem. I'd like to enter the staff report, its attachments, and all public testimony into the record. This property is located on Liberty Street and is non-contributing to our downtown National Register Historic District. And this is a one-story commercial structure which has been altered significantly since its original construction. While the original National Register nomination stated that the building was constructed in 1914, research completed by staff, Kirsten, revealed that this building was constructed in 1905 and initially housed the switchboards for the Pacific Telephone and Telegraph Company from 1905 to 1930. And in 1930, the Fred Meyer store moved in and occupied the building through 1948. I love that picture on the left with all the snow. In 1948, the building went through a significant remodel to accommodate the Leeds shoe store, who occupied the building until 1966. So this is actually a compliance case. So the case before you, the work has already been completed, and the applicant is applying for retroactive approval to install the security gate you can see here and the fencing. You can see on the left side of your screen how it looked before the gate was installed, and then how it looks now on the lower right. So again, this is an active compliance case. So while the applicant is working towards compliance regarding the historic design review and building permits, which have both been applied for, some items remain in violation relating to outside storage, and our compliance officer is working on that with the owner. So the specifics of the case, again, it's approval to install a 19-foot 6-inch wide gate. It has varying height due to the arched design of the gate. So it ranges from 5.5 to 6.5 feet tall. The gate itself is forged steel. And similar to the hearing you had last month, it conveys the appearance of a wrought iron picket. So a portion of it's a gate which opens, and the other portion is a security fence. And so at no point is the gate itself or the fencing actually attached to the storefront. The gate is attached to 2 freestanding metal posts, and the fencing is as well, and they're secured at the base. So I'm going to go through the applicable criteria. SRC 230.045D for storefronts. So the first is the materials. So again, because the gate itself is not attached to the existing storefront, no original material has been disturbed or replaced. Unlike the other security gate you looked at a few months ago, there's no decorative tile at the base that will be that's character defining, that's been disturbed by the installation of the posts. And then the material, the metal gate itself, is compatible. It's a material that's found commonly throughout the downtown historic district. And then the second section regarding design, again, no features of the existing storefront are altered by the installation of the gate. And the design of the gate itself, it fits in to the front of the entry to the recessed opening, and it's removable. So it's not attached and it's removable. So staff would recommend that the Landmarks Commission find that SRC 230.045D has been met for this proposal. So we did receive public comment from John Christensen, who has concerns about the security gate. There was testimony in support from the Neighborhood Association, Can Do, submitted by Michael Livingston. And the Building and Safety Division indicated that the applicant must comply with the applicable code related for egress and as well as occupancy for these gates. And the applicant is working with the building division as part of the building permit process. And the planning division has no concerns, and neither did the Public Works Department. And there's been no comments from any public agencies. So based upon the applicant's submittal and the findings presented in the staff report, staff recommends the Landmarks Commission approve the proposal. That concludes the staff report.
Thank you, Kimberly. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff? Commissioner Strauss?
I have one question. I'm looking at the site plan here, and I'm looking at the north side where the 6-foot metal gate opens inside towards the glass. Do we know if there's some sort of way to keep that metal gate from hitting the historic glass, or is it? Do we know anything about that?
Let me share so I'm clear. Is it this plan that you're referring to?
Looking at the north side there, how the gate opens up towards the glass, towards the storefront.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer to that question. I know that I did go to the site and look at pictures. I did take pictures, and I know that Stephanie did as well, but that's not a question I can answer for certain whether I don't recall seeing any kind of barrier or stop. And so it wouldn't hit the glass.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do any other commissioners have any questions for staff? Okay. Then I will call for the applicant's testimony. Do we have the applicant here? So there is nobody here. Nobody from the neighborhood association, and do we have anybody from the sign-up sheet? Melanie,
Yes.
is this for this case?
Yes.
Okay. Please come, you can come up to the podium and then state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's, is this on?
Hello.
Hi, my name's Melanie Weston and I own Salem on the Edge Fine Gallery, 156 Liberty Street Northeast. So I am the retail gallery just south of the French Unicorn. I find this gate very concerning for many issues. One is it just doesn't make downtown look safe. We already have issues down there and people are afraid to come to the town. As far as I'm sure issues that you already know about, and this gate just makes it worse. We're not New York. I don't think people are gonna be going in and smashing her windows or doors. The other issue is that she is storing things behind the gate. It's a constant move in, move out almost every day. They are dropping things off. And she is trying to make nice little displays behind the gate, but it's an issue. Again, it just doesn't look good for the rest of the block, for the downtown community to have the storage going on, boxes and furniture stacked. Yeah, I just feel like we don't need metal gates. We don't need metal gates. If you don't feel safe, if her property isn't safe, her belongings safe inside of the building, sell the building. Sell the building so that someone can move in and bring some more retail shops to downtown Salem so that people want to come downtown and shop. The more buildings that we have that are closed up, it's just not healthy. It's not healthy for our community downtown. And it really hurts all of us retail shops. Seriously, where people are not coming downtown. And I'm concerned. It's concerning for my business. When her shop was open, people came into my shop. You know, we get more people walking around. They came down specifically to go into the French Unicorn. And then, you know, wandering around. So it's just healthy for buildings, you know, to have shops that are open, not closed, putting gates, and not planning on opening. I just don't see the point. So, thank you.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions?
I have a question. Is the business, to your knowledge, is the business still open or is it just being used to
Just storage.
as storage?
Just storage.
Thank you. So the gate, to clarify, the gate is closed all day?
Well, yes, except for when she's bringing in more.
Come back up to the podium.
Oh,
So
sorry.
Thank you.
Except for when she's bringing in more stuff. And then it is outside of the doors. She moves it in, although not all of the product or chairs, boxes get moved into the space. So
Okay,
there's always something behind the gate.
so the gate is not just for nighttime security, it's all the time.
Oh, all the time,
Thank you.
yes.
Do you have any other questions?
To your knowledge, is there a second entrance to the building? Is there a way of
ingress or egress besides that front.
I believe there's a back door into the alley.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. I think all of our buildings have back doors.
Yeah, seems like a fire thing. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Do any of the commissioners have any additional questions for staff?
I have a question about the permitted use. Is it permitted to use this space for storage or as a loading, sounds like it's being used as kind of a loading dock. Is that even permitted?
You can't just do storage downtown. Our records indicate that they're using it for a secondhand store. It is an ongoing compliance case as far as all the, which can really show here, all the items stored outside. She has been given a correction notice. The compliance officer has been working with her. She's moved some things, but then brings more things. So it's an ongoing issue that we were trying to address. I was not aware the store was never open, and I'm not sure our compliance officer was aware of that. So that's something we can follow up on the use. Because it's hard to think of them separately, but the issue tonight is whether or not the gate applies with the historic design regulations for this property. And maybe Kimberly has more to add. I know she's been working with the compliance officer on it as well.
Yeah, I know that I began working with Ann Johnson, so she's the owner of the property. Well, everything's before COVID and after COVID, isn't it? And I know that she was struggling after her husband passed away with managing the store. And I did talk with her before COVID about installing the gate because of her concerns for her own personal safety. So again, I would reiterate what Lisa said as well, that the Landmarks Commission doesn't have regulatory authority over use, but you do have regulatory authority over the design itself and the impact to the building and the resource. So any conditions that you might want to consider or findings relating to whether you want to approve or deny this, they need to be clearly related to the code itself, which is why I painstakingly make you sit through all of that. And I know it's hard, but yeah, I hope that answers your questions. But yeah, as Lisa said, our compliance officer is continuing to work with the owner to try to resolve some of these outstanding violations.
Thank you. I will now close the public hearing. No additional testimony will be accepted. Oh, Commissioner Inman, sorry.
Yeah, I have a question for staff. It appears that we don't really have any regulation on security gates and fencing in our storefront guidelines. And we're looking at these now on a case-by-case basis. And it's looking at them as fences is not, I don't know if that's the correct way to be looking at these, but as storefront security gates, I think that testimony has shown that there's some issues with these things being closed all the time, or not open and welcoming to the public, and so on. Aside from just their appearance. So I'm just wondering if we should try to come up with some clearer guidelines on those kinds of things. I'd like to know if there's anything we could do, or
Yeah, and I'll let Kimberly jump in as well, but I think it's something that you could convene a work session on generally and decide if you want to change the code and adopt standards that would be specific for this in the downtown historic district. And then maybe Kimberly could do research about what other cities allow. People can testify at a work session and bring in their kind of about why they're doing it or why they're not, or that kind of thing. So I know we've done this in the past for things that new situations that arise that the code doesn't cover, solar panels and stuff like that. So would you agree with that, Kimberly?
Yeah, definitely. And this is an issue that has come up since we last updated our code. I do have a question for Lisa and Fred. And I don't know the answer, which is why I'm putting you in this awkward position. Is it possible for the Landmarks Commission to craft a condition requiring the gate to be open during typical business hours?
Well, you can craft anything you want, but if anybody challenges it, you have to be able to justify it. And it would have to be justified on one of the approval criteria. And
Right.
I'm not, I don't want to say for certain one or the other, but it says, as Commissioner Inman just talked about, these storefront criteria don't really apply to gates particularly. And so I think it would be difficult at least to craft a condition of approval that was based on these approval criteria that went to how often a gate can open. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think we're facing that problem with these criteria are specifically designed for security fences.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, but I thought I'd ask anyway.
I have another, question or concern, and that is that, the gate, and fence, due to its color, which is, a light, biscuit beige, a light color, is very, prominent in the facade. And as we know, when you look at glass in a storefront or in a building in windows, it tends to go dark. It goes black, gray, becomes a mirror, and it's dark. This particular gate and fence that has been installed is painted a color that makes it especially prominent. And though its style may be okay, I believe that the color is detracts from the historic district and from the historic buildings. So I just would like to raise that issue.
Commissioner Fuller.
Bouncing off what Commissioner was saying, there we go, bouncing off of what Commissioner was saying. This might be a question for staff, might be a question for you all. But okay, looking at our historic design review, we have design as a principle of our review, correct? And so it says, to the extent practical, original storefront components such as windows, door configurations, transom signage, and decorative features shall be preserved. Okay. Same thing with replacement of things saying that they need to be compatible with scale, proportions, and massing height, rhythms, all that kind of stuff, right? Looking at the historic photographs of this house when the windows went in, one of the things that this building, one of the things that the storefront offered that the construction of this fence would dramatically reduce is the way that the public can use this storefront, the way that the public can interact with this space, right? It dramatically changes the functional design of the building. This thing has huge, big front plate glass windows, right? And even if you had installed that fence in place, when it swings open in the design that we've seen, that even swings in front of the display windows. People have been using that space as a display place, and the public has been able to walk past it and look at it for decades. is it arguable then that changing the physical layout of the space, the structural layout of the space, alters its design? Is that a thing? I would argue yes, but I'm putting my argument for my question here, so.
I think we're probably all having some of the same thoughts, but I do wanna add that just from a design perspective, to me, this radically alters the design of the building and even though in a technical sense, as Kimberly, has carefully itemized for us, it might meet the criteria, I think the overall design itself is such an eyesore that it just, I think it detracts from the design of the building and the look of the historic storefronts downtown, which are they're kind of classic downtown storefronts, they have their own charm. This definitely detracts from that. Like you said, I think the color and the fact that it covers up those big open windows that are meant to kind of bring people in. To me, that doesn't meet the historic design or the intent of that design criteria. Commissioner Strauss.
Kimberly, does replacement, in the context of this section of code have a specific definition?
Replacement would be replacing any component of the storefront itself. So similar to the security gate that you guys looked at a few months ago, this is not a replacement, it's a new alteration. And I know you didn't ask this question, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. The issue that this property owner was trying to solve was one relating to security due to the homeless sleeping in that alcove and breaking into her store when she wasn't there. So again, similar to the case you heard last month, it's not as straightforward as, okay, we're just trying to improve the storefront. It's a different series of challenges. And I agree with Commissioner Inman that we do need to update our code to reflect the new challenges that we're seeing downtown. And you don't have the tools right now to adequately do that. But the direction I had given her 4 years ago was a gate that would not adversely affect the existing features of the storefront. And I believe that's what she attempted to do, even though she didn't go through the process because it's not attached to the storefront.
Thank you.
Good question. Were there break-ins? Was there a history of criminal activity aside from people sheltering outside of the store?
I was told that, but I do not have evidence of that, and none of that was submitted, and the applicant is not here.
I will now call for a motion.
Technically, technically, you did not actually close the record because you've been asking Kim questions, so you need to close the record first.
Sorry. I will now close the public hearing. No additional testimony. No additional testimony will be accepted at this time without formally reopening the hearing. I will now call for a motion.
I move to approve with one condition, to move as approved as with one condition, that the north half of the gate will have some sort of protection for the window. Probably word that a little better.
Do we have a second? The motion fails.
I'll now call for another motion. See that there are no more motions.
Yeah.
Commissioner Inman.
I shall try to craft a denial motion. I move that the commission deny the proposal based on non-compliance with the design standards in SRC 230. In that the design of this replacement of this gate and fence is incompatible with the scale, proportions, massing, material, color of the historic contributing buildings in the vicinity. And that, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Do I have a second? Commissioner Strong seconds. We have a motion to deny for non-compliance and for non-compliance. To your motion. Do you want to say anything about it, or did you want to say anything more about your motion?
The only thing I would suggest is that if in order to make this existing gate and fence fit better within the historic district, I think that that its color needs to be reconsidered and changed, and that it be open during business hours so as to maintain the historic appearance of the storefront, and that a gate stop be installed so that there can be no damage to the existing storefront from this metal gate. So I think that some redesign and operational changes and not having any stored materials in that area would be the kinds of things that would bring it into compliance with our guidelines.
Thank you, Commissioner Strong. Do you have anything to say for your motion?
No, I agree. I mean, I think that's a reasonable.
I think that's a reasonable compromise, given, I mean, I realize this store is dealing with a difficult situation, but I think Commissioner Inman's suggestions, including not storing items behind the gate, would maybe make it something that we could consider at a future meeting. That's the motion, right? We'll consider it.
That's my discussion. The motion is just to deny based on not meeting.
May I jump in with a clarification on process? I apologize. So if the commission chooses to deny this application, you will not consider it at a future meeting, and the applicant has to wait a year before they can submit again. So if you would like to continue it, however, that would be an avenue, and I'll let Lisa and Fred weigh in. I just wanted you to be clear about what your decision will entail.
Or the applicant could appeal it, and the appeal goes to the hearings officer.
Could it be denied without prejudice so that it could be brought back in a shorter period of time?
So the Salem Revised Code says that once an application's denied, they cannot submit the same substantial proposal for a year unless the planning administrator finds that it's changed enough that the facts that were used to deny it no longer would exist. So I do have the ability to accept another application from them if we feel like they've changed things. Though if from this discussion, if what they come back with is I just need to change the color, then I would feel like we could have maybe made that a condition versus denying it. Making them pay their application fee, et cetera, to just come back with maybe a proposal to paint it. And the door stop, or the stop for the swinging, Commissioner Strauss could be a condition as well. I mean, you have to approve it, I'm just, thinking out loud.
Yeah.
And the storage, yes, the storage is being addressed either way, Barrack Code compliance, so they do have an active case. And so, just so you understand kind of how it works, we start with correction notices, right? We try to get voluntary compliance. Then sometimes they're verbal, sometimes they're written, and then we move to an official enforcement order, which is like a written order saying, we've observed this violation, you have this amount of time to fix it. If you don't, we could move to penalties or fines. They could appeal the enforcement order. I don't think, based on pictures, she's gonna say, no, there's nothing there when there's the pictures of stuff there. And so she has moved some of the stuff, but our enforcement officer went out today and said, oh, some of the stuff, but new stuff, so it's still an ongoing thing. We have not moved to the phase of issuing civil penalties. That would be our next thing. And then just so you kind of understand how enforcement works, we have many cases across the city where we do issue civil penalties and they're not paid, and they increase and they increase, and then there are liens against the property. And so sometimes even that is not enough to solve a problem if somebody's really struggling with, what their problem is on their property. So, I mean, sometimes the city does then, get the money back years later, foreclosures and stuff like that. So we haven't progressed the civil penalties, but I just want to assure the commission, we will continue to work on the storage. And the fact that it's not being open. Our notes indicate that we believe they're open 3 days a week. But it sounds like maybe that's not even happening, so they're not permitted to just use the building as storage, so that would be a different violation that we would be following up, but we don't allow ground floor storage as a use in downtown.
Further discussion, it appears that this is a long-standing issue. This has been going on for years, so a denial at this point probably is not a major obstacle. And should the applicant wish to make the outlined changes, then I think the hearing officer could find that it's a changed project and bring it back. But I am inclined to just go ahead and continue with the motion to deny based on design.
Commissioner Strauss?
I think that one thing that we need to be very clear about is that this gate is not replacement material, it's new material. And so I don't think that we can deny the gate based on replacement criteria, because I think that this gate is meeting the criteria, though I agree, I don't love the design, I don't love the color. I think, in order to address some of the issues that we're running into with these security gates, we should look into changing the code, because I don't think that we have the tools that we need to, look at this in a careful manner. Because I think as presented, it does meet the criteria, because this gate's not a replacement material. So I'll be voting against this motion.
I'm just wondering if there's, if we allow this kind of thing, what is to stop somebody from putting a fence across an entire storefront or something even bigger? It's not damaging what's there, except that it is damaging the look and function.
That and say that I think what we're looking at here is a question of preservation for what, right? Is it preservation for preservation's sake? Is it the idea that everything is fine so long as we have the building maintain its integral components, but could we build a wall in front of it and have it and have it not be accessible, you know? And does that somehow manage to maintain a sense of preservation? Like, we're not talking about preservation of a building necessarily, we're talking about a historic district, right? We're talking about a place that is more than just some of its parts. And I don't know if this is something that can be argued at this point. You know, if it is just a, you know, building blocks kind of a thing of physical components, but it does not seem to me that the design of the structure with these parts, with these non-replacement parts that are somehow replacing the function of this building, that are changing it dramatically and the way that the public can interact with it, based on the issues that the storefront holder may not even be sustainably having, or at least they're not even presenting to us personally. So it really seems like a design issue on a grand scale to me.
Commissioner Edmond?
Yeah, and to follow up on your comment, it does seem to be an enclosure of the outdoor space. And in that regard, it is an addition to the building, and you know, it's not a temporary enclosure just at night when you bring a grill down. It's a closure. It's like enclosing closing in a porch. It's an enclosure. So I'm going to stay with the demand.
All I wanted to say, which was just, I think the most, well, there's several unfortunate things about it, but one of them is just that this was a retroactive approval, and so, you know, I think just based on our discussions tonight, you know, it's unfortunate that the process that was laid out, you know, in our guidelines and in the city code and stuff were not followed through, because then perhaps the motion would be more, you know, there would be more success, you know, just in terms of where this discussion is led. So say so. I will now call for a vote on the motion of denying based on non-compliance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against?
Aye.
Aye. Nay.
Yeah, nay.
Motion passes 3-2. And I will now open the public hearing for historic review case number HIS 23-23 for the England Wade Building at 236 Commercial Street Northeast. May we now have the staff presentation? Oh, sorry. Would the recorder please read the hearing procedure statement into the record?
This is a public hearing to consider case number HIS 23-23 for property located at 236 Commercial Street Northeast. The criteria applicable to this hearing are listed in Salem Revised Code Chapter 230.095D demolition and 230.065 general guidelines for historic contributing structures. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing with statements or evidence sufficient to afford the Historic Landmarks Commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to an issue precludes appeal to the hearings officer on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony. The Historic Landmarks Commission will then either continue the public hearing or leave the record open for at least 7 days.
Thank you. Are there any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts commissioners would like to declare this time? Seeing none, may we please have the staff presentation?
Good evening, Kimberly Fitzgerald, Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Salem. I'd like to enter the staff report, its attachments and all testimony into the public record. This property is located on the east side of Commercial Street Northeast, north of Court Street, and is a contributing resource to our downtown historic district. Here's a view of the primary facade fronting Commercial Street. Here's a view from the alley looking southwest. And a bit about the history. So the England Wade Building was constructed in 1887. It's a 2-story stucco face brick commercial building, which was actually combined with a second building and was remodeled circa 1950 with modern style features. So as you can see from the picture there in the upper left, it doesn't look anything like what it used to. Pictured here, you can see the sign for the Allen hardware store. So that operated downtown from 1923 through 1970. They actually had 3 locations in Salem for a time. William England was actually one of Salem's early wagon makers, which I think was cool. And he built the block along with R.M. Wade, who was a hardware and farm implement businessman. So at the rear of the structure, which you saw a picture of earlier, and you can see the Sanborn Fire Insurance map there on the right side of your screen. A large 2-story storage building was constructed as a warehouse, most likely sometime before 1950. So it shows up here on the Sanborn. It was actually also on the 1926 Sanborn map, so it may have been an earlier structure, which was then expanded and connected to the England Wade Building, so enveloping it. Anyway, it's not clear when all of this happened, but we do just have the Sanborn Fire Insurance maps to show what may have happened there. And regardless, the accessory structure itself, which I'll show pictures here in just a second, is clad in corrugated metal siding. It does not have any windows or other character defining features, and the load-bearing walls are just around the perimeter. So here's a elevation view of the north elevation. The applicant is proposing to demolish the 1950 structure. And this is about 150 feet by 200 feet. You can see some pictures there. Here's the opposite elevation. You can see. Here's the proposal. So the site plan showing the existing project building that's going to be retained, and the new building, which will be at the rear. The site coverage, so the England Wade Building footprint is 4,561 square feet, and the footprint of the proposed new structure is 2,126 square feet. So you can get a sense of the scale. The proposed alterations on the primary facade include reopening the transom windows and installing a new door within the storefront there for emergency exiting. On the secondary facade on the east, fronting the courtyard, that's actually the rear. The applicant's proposing to reopen windows that have been blocked for years by that existing building. And they're also proposing to install one fixed new window opening there at the center. And they are also proposing to install a new storefront metal entry door there at the rear. So moving on to the new structure. So this is a new 3-story, 2,000, again, 126 square foot footprint structure at the rear of the England Wade building, and it's fronting Electric Alley. The building is proposed to be clad in corrugated metal with fixed metal windows, excuse me, on each of the 3 floors, some paired with a 1/1 narrow band window. So again, it reflects the modern design of the primary facade of the England Wade building. Here's some elevation views of the rear and the courtyard. So you can see here the height of the structure will be slightly taller than the England Wade building, especially at the elevator tower, which is centrally located there on the roof. So now I'm going to go through the applicable criteria. First, the demolition. So this is in SRC 230095E2. So the first criteria to consider is significance. So this particular structure is not individually significant and is not an example of skilled craftsmanship. Relating to the structural integrity and the potential for adaptive reuse. As I mentioned before, the load-bearing walls only exist on the perimeter, and the structure itself is not sufficiently in good condition for adaptive reuse for the proposed residential units that the applicant wishes to use the building for. So staff recommends the Landmarks Commission find that the structure lacks significance and structural integrity and for anything other than storage, and that SRC 230095E2 has been met. So moving on to the proposed alterations to the England Wade building and the site itself. So the applicant is proposing to continue to use the resource for commercial uses on the ground floor, its historic purpose, and proposing to adaptively reuse the upper floors for residential purposes. And overall, the applicant is proposing to reopen the transom windows on the primary storefront, and no significant alterations are proposed for the primary facade. There are proposed alterations on the secondary facades. However, they include reopening existing blocked openings and installing critical egress doors. And due to their location, it minimizes any adverse effects to these proposals. So further discussing the proposed demolition, which we considered under a different standard. However, the demolition of the storage building does free up a previously blocked facade, and through that they will be repairing the brick and again reopening the original openings on this facade. So staff recommends that SRC 230065A, B, C, D, and E have been met. Moving on to consideration of the alterations to the site, the building and the site. So overall, the changes on the primary facade, as I mentioned, are minimal and serve to restore the 1950 modern style storefront of the resource, including reopening the transom windows. Overall, no significant character defining features will be altered on the primary facade, and the reopening of the windows on the rear facade will serve to restore that original appearance. The construction of the new 3-story multifamily building at the rear of the England Wade building site, it will be set back from the historic resource and fronting the alley. And even though it is taller than the England Wade building, it will not be easily visible from Commercial Street. So that will minimize any adverse visual impact relating to the height of this new structure. The footprint itself is much smaller than the existing structure currently at the rear of the site, half the square footage. A minimal amount of ground disturbance is necessary to install the foundation. However, the new structure will be set back from the England Wade building, reducing any potential for adverse effect to this foundation. So overall, staff recommends the HLC find that SRC 230065 has been met for the proposal. There's been no public comment. There's been a statement of support from Michael Livingston from the Can Do Neighborhood Association, and comments from Building and Safety relating to confirmation of occupancy type and use for the structure. The planning division indicated that a Class 2 site plan approval is required, and the applicant has applied for this. However, staff recommends the Landmarks Commission adopt a condition of approval to ensure compliance prior to construction. So in sum, based upon the applicant's submittal and the findings presented in the staff report, staff recommends the Landmarks Commission approve the proposal with the following condition: that the applicant obtain a Class 2 site plan approval authorizing adaptive reuse of the England Wade building, demolition of the rear structure, and construction of a new 12-unit multifamily residential structure at the rear of the England Wade building. That concludes the staff report.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff? Yep, Commissioner Strauss.
Just to confirm, Kimberly, so the accessory structure in the rear was constructed in around 1950?
It was attached to the enveloped, attached to the England Wade building in 1950. However, the Sanborn fire insurance maps show that there was a storage building in the 1926 map. So it's really unclear whether that core structure is earlier or not.
Okay, and can I continue? Another question. And the storefront or the front of the building went through a major remodel in 1950. Right. So we can assume that maybe the accessory structure at the back went through something at the same time. Is that what I'm understanding?
Right, and I think I glazed over it, but I did find some newspaper evidence referring to the major update of this building in 1950.
This building is contributing to the downtown with the 1950 facade?
Yeah, it is, because the end date of the period of significance is 1950 for the district. And at the time, the SHPO and MPS determined that because it reflected that those changes reflected that period of time, that it would be contributing, even though it didn't reflect that original design.
Awesome, thank you.
Do we have any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I will now call for the applicant's testimony. Please state your name and address for the record. And please note that your testimony is limited to 15 minutes.
Hi, I'm Charles Weathers. I live at 1865 Church Street Southeast out here in Salem. And I don't have a ton to add, but I bet you'll have a lot of questions, because if you don't stand in the building and look at it every day like I do, you probably are like, that's interesting. What's that about? So I look forward to answering those. But first, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. It is a bummer that no one's paying attention, because I'm downtown every day. And so I appreciate the work that you do to keep it, like you said, interesting and inviting. Also want to thank, where is she? I don't really know. Here. I thank Kimberly for taking the time to present today. I know there's a lot going on. So thank you. Especially support everything that she said, like the report. And it actually gave me some extra information for when I go for special assessments. So thank you twice. what I like about this especially, I've been downtown, done these projects before, 440 State Street, and then Broadway. What do we call it? New Wexford, but it used to be Whitlocks. And so often it's been either remodel or new construction. And I like this one because it really gives us that both approach. And so it's very exciting in that respect. Hence why we named it Retro Electro. The 50s seems like everything got redone downtown. And so it's that retro in the front, but then the alley being the electro in the back, which electricity is more modern than 1887. And so that's why the design is still the modern-esque of the retroness, but a bit electric in a way, in the rear. And so that is what, I keep looking over here because this is Dylan from CV2, he drew it all up. If you have really technical specific questions, I will defer some of my time to him if that's acceptable. What's that say? Did I make 15 minutes? They don't have kids. No, I'm good. But I'd like to answer your questions, so please throw them out.
Commissioner Strauss.
Thanks for coming. I do have some questions for you. So the elevator shaft, it seems like that's gonna be the tallest portion of the new building. I saw maybe on the colored photo that it was yellow. Is that the planned paint color for the elevator shaft?
Well, slight point of clarification, no elevators planned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, but it's a stairway to heaven or a party deck on the top,
Oh, okay,
whichever you wanna call it. And amenity space for the tenants, on the roof. I don't know, is it just able to call it out? Oh, I guess I can't practice. To be determined is my answer.
Can you state your name and address?
Dylan Chavez with C2 Architects, Liberty Street. So the color in there is to reflect sort of the other accents within the rest of the building, and we're currently trying to get some elements to tie to the large alley portion of it, so there's something tied to that. That is essentially a stair tower for egress to get up to the top of that building safely, having that issue.
Commissioner Strauss.
And will you be able to see, so you will be able to see some of it from the front of the
No,
building?
you won't be able to see that. From
Okay.
Commercial Street, no, won't see it.
Just from the back.
Yeah, it's just that tiny little bit, if you can suddenly, probably from the parking garage, maybe across the street, there's object there, but that's minimalized.
Commissioner Strauss.
Sorry, more question. So I read in your report here that it looks like most of the original historic facade was removed during that 1950 renovation. Or is that like confirmed, you know, that all of those details have been removed?
I wouldn't know how to confirm it without deteriorating the now contributing facade. So, yeah, we haven't like ripped out the stucco to see if that stuff's there. But with the change in fenestration, I think is the word. Yeah.
Right.
The difference in windows, I mean, it really seems like all those 7 that were shown in that Allen Brothers hardware photo are far gone. And it's unfortunate because it really is very similar style to, I don't know the technical name, but Salem Summit next door, you know, it kind of mirrored a lot of that. So yeah, if there was a humongous grant, I'd love the budget to bring all that back because the cornice is great and the way the windows look, but yeah, it really looks like it is all gone. There's a lot of HVAC in the way and we haven't made a huge mess yet from the inside of the transom area. So I can't tell if the previous windows that in the transom section are still there. And of course, if they are, we will retain and refinish. We had that at Whitlocks. One half of the building had them, coming back, the other half just had cinder blocks. So we're replacing like kind. But so if they're there, we'll keep them. Otherwise, we know the dimensions from the photo and from what's there now. But that's the best for any like exploratory demo we've been able to do.
Okay. One more follow-up, I'm so sorry. You can call somebody else.
Does anybody else have a question?
There you go.
Commissioner Inman, I just have a comment. This is a great looking project.
Thank you.
I actually I think it's a beautiful design and I love the fact that it ties in with other new buildings downtown. It looks a little bit like Courtney Place and the new Y. Yeah, it looks like a big improvement to what's there. Although I know that isn't our call, but that's my personal opinion. But my question was just out of curiosity, what kind of housing is this gonna be?
In what respect?
I mean, are these just lovely apartments? low income housing? Is it, what's the intent of the space?
Yeah, it's market rate at the time being. Those are lots of hurdles that I've not been able to jump through to get to the low income and such.
No, it looks way too small to have anything like that. I was just curious what the intent was and,
Yeah, there's a mix of 2 beds. Well, there's no 2 beds in the new building, but in the redone second floor, I don't know if we officially call it 2 bed. Ones with extra rooms, but yeah, it's a mix of primarily 1s and 2. I'm sorry, 1 bedrooms and studios. So
it's something we really need downtown.
yeah, definitely. And what's just to add on, since you said it was beautiful, thank you. You can't really tell from the renderings because it's back from the corner from the alley, and the top down doesn't really describe so much, but there's a courtyard in between because the 2 buildings are separate. Looking forward to having that. That's pretty rare downtown as well. It's some space for the residents that is private but still open, you know, so that's something we're excited about too.
I think the rooftop access will be really nice too. Is that gonna be a finished space? Will there be railing around it of some kind?
Yeah, and those sails.
You're talking about your sunshades.
Yeah, with sunshade, those few days when there's not sun here. But yeah, there'll be a bit of a, I don't know, we have that.
Yeah, so about half that roof will end up becoming occupiable space for residents to go up there, and then the other half, they obviously have to maintain for mechanical equipment, things like that, so we can shelter that, so it doesn't show up in the alleys and all the other spaces. So about half that roof is up there, the half that faces more towards the alley that's activated this time, which goes to burn those kind of spaces, to help try and double down on the excitement and the energy that's happening in that alley, along with the arts, the galleries, and all the other little shops that are opening up in there. So it's kind of positioned to try and take advantage of what's already there and help build on the rest of that character, so we can continue to keep more vibrancy throughout the day and night, which is always an issue downtown.
Yeah, the live bodies outside downtown is, yeah, I'm sure our previous commenter would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Strauss.
Thank you.
She's back.
I know, it's me again. So my last question, can you clarify, and I apologize if we went over this like in detail during the presentation, but the existing facade, the stucco, that is remaining or is being replaced?
No, yeah, that's staying on commercial. There isn't any in the public view in the rear because it's been kind of this amalgamation of metal that's been stuck on there. Like Kimberly said, it started at some point and then just kind of kept growing over into it. So what you will see is the masonry that's back there. Once we separate the 2, demolish the accessory structure, and then that'll be an entrance point for the residents on the 2nd floor. So they'll kind of come down, I don't want to say an alley, but you know, the building doesn't go to the property line all the way to the north, so there's a space there. And if you were standing dead on, you could see some of the back of the building, but of course, as you move further up Electric Alley to the north and then look back, you'll see more of the back of the building just with the way the sign is.
Okay, so the biggest change to the front then is just gonna be uncovering those, hopefully uncovering those trains and windows.
Yeah, well, hopefully uncovering them, and if not, adding ones.
Okay, great.
Of the same function.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I actually have one more question. Could you describe why you chose the corrugated metal for the new structure?
Ooh, he's gonna do a better job.
Okay, so I'll clarify, it's not a corrugated metal, it is a metal panel.
Metal
So,
panel.
We were trying to come across something that was both reflective of what would have been a kind of 1950s modernist box movement at the time, call it that, but also had something that tied to the structure that's there now, so that we don't necessarily totally forget our history of what we did. We have something, so there's a relationship between the 2 things that also ties to what the current modern facility is now, right? So in current design, it's a very clean, thin lines, that kind of thing is what's you define as this kind of era of architecture. So we were trying to find a healthy balance between all of these things so that the piece of architecture that's back there is reflective of all of the elements that have created over time. So,
Okay, great, thank you, I appreciate you clarifying.
Do we have any more questions? Okay, seeing as there are none.
Brett, everyone else did something.
I mean, I make a comment. I'm just giving you a no, I will go along with some of the commissioners and say it's, I think a really effective reuse of a structure, and a attempt to bring more people in and to create a more livable, usable space. I mean, I've spent lots of time in that alley. It's a great spot for pride, and and you're trying to change some of its structure and its nature. I think that's admirable and something that we need in the downtown area. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It doesn't look like there's anybody from the neighborhood association and there's nobody else signed up. Do we have any more questions for staff? Okay. Then I will now close the public hearing. No additional testimony will be accepted at this time without formally reopening the hearing. I will now call for a motion. Chairman?
Yes. I move that the Landmarks Commission approve the proposal with the following condition that the applicant obtain the Class 2 site plan approval authorizing adaptive reuse of the England Way building, demolition of the rear structure, and construction of a new 12-unit multifamily residential structure at the rear of the England Way building. Do I have a second?
I'll
Do
second.
we have a second?
Sorry, yeah, I will second.
Commissioner Strauss, second. Do we have a motion from Commissioner Inman and a second from Commissioner Strauss on approving the proposal with the condition 1 as stated? Do we have a vote? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Items. Do we have action items?
No action items tonight.
Do we have any discussion items?
Our first discussion item is just updates to the action plan if any commissioners will work on it.
Chairman? Yes, we Commissioner Strauss and I will be meeting with the Criterion School on next Monday and doing our site visit.
Pose a question, if maybe we could walk down the path of doing a work session with maybe the code committee. I'm not sure who would be the right committee about the storefront issues that we're dealing with, because I think it's come up often enough, and I haven't even been on the commission that long, and we've already had several cases on it, and it seems like it's probably going to be something that will continue coming up. So I would be in favor of doing a work session on maybe what our ideal would look like when it comes to fences and gates downtown.
So I agree, since we keep at, it's gonna continue, and we should, I just think we should be prepared for, whatever might come up, to us in a case, so we're not caught off guard and we're a little bit more, have things squared away in our own guidelines and stuff, so.
Yeah, I think that the guidelines we've been using just haven't didn't envision a gate being part of the conversation, and I think that I agree that I'm not loving the gates downtown. I don't think that they, add a lot to the vibrancy of downtown, and so I think if we can think a bit more carefully about that, it might be nice. And also, I think your point too, that you brought up earlier, that you're kind of changing the use of the space is a good one to think about, and so I think we should look at that more closely.
Thank you. Newsletter.
So our next edition of the newsletter will go out shortly after the holidays, and we briefly talked about it in our last meeting, but I need to review the footage to remember who, I don't think anyone actually signed up for anything. Or maybe.
I'm kind of
maybe
full.
you
I didn't know what I wanted to do at the time.
Okay.
I think that I was just poking around and we talk about railroads. We've got this wild railroad and this big controversy that went around it in the late 19th century. It runs right through Salem, and like the one that runs right next to the Capitol has just been there since before there was really a town, or there was a settled by Europeans and Americans town. The train station is from 1918. It's a historic structure, and it is like the third one there. Just other ones burned down. And anyway, I think there's some drama there that I'd like to talk about.
As a reminder, this one is printed and mailed, so we don't actually need too much because we are limited in our pages. Whereas our online one, we can write as much as we want, so. I will want to say that you said that you would make something, but I don't remember what it was, so I'll review this.
You know what, she's remembering now that you say that. And I think it was about the parade. The Christmas parade. What day?
I would like to have them by December 20th.
Okay. I will write something about the holiday parade.
And that's all I have on the newsletter. And that's the last item on there, but we also should talk about the holiday party, but I don't know if Kim wants to talk about it in her thing, or she wants me to do it now.
No, you should do it.
Okay, so last month we discussed having a holiday party, and the preferred date was December 6th. And we spoke to staff at Deepwood, and they are willing to host us on that night. The only caveat is that they would need some help to reset the room for tours, which will be happening in the morning. So anyone who would be able to stay after the party to reset the room. But otherwise we should be okay to use that, and I'll figure out the exact timing, but it would be in the evening on Wednesday, December 6th. Yeah.
Historic Preservation Officer report.
I do just want to give a brief update. I think Connie can jump in. Connie attended the CLG workshop, which was virtual this year, and I spoke along with Patrick Flanagan from LCIS and Chris Bailey from the Grand Ronde about our program, and it just went really well. So we had a lot of discussion, interesting questions, lots of folks from other jurisdictions like ours grappling with some of the same issues. Anyway, so it was good. I don't know, Connie, if you had any, were you able to stay for the whole thing, Connie, or just a bit?
I was there for your part and the early part of the day, and then I tuned in at the end for Joyce Sears' presentation.
Oh, good. I'm glad you were able to. That's good. Great. And next year it should be in person. So it's a great opportunity to meet other folks from other communities that are doing exactly what you're doing. And they did discuss a listserv, which they've had for years, but I always forget about it. So I was thinking that our grappling with these security gates, it might be a good thing to put out on the listserv to just kind of see if there's any other examples of codes that folks have adopted that we could use and learn from. There's also the NAPC listserv too, so I could put a question out there. The only other thing, well, there's two things I wanted to share, if it's okay. Brett has decided he's not going to re-up, which I'm sad about. We really appreciate all your time and devotion. And I remember when I first met you in person, I think you started serving so I saw your face like a floaty head for many meetings. And I think just like with Zach, when I first met Zach, I was like, you're so tall.
Yeah, because I signed on in December of 20 is when I put the application in. I was 100% unemployed. And over the past 3 years, my career has really taken off, which is great, but it's also meant that you know, I'm not able to be here and do the kinds of things that a member of this commission really needs to be doing in their in their off times. I have no off time anymore. And this has been great. I'm really excited to come back at some point if seats open up again, and if and when my life changes, because I really enjoyed being a part of this this body and civic engagement this way. So thank you also, all in all, for making this possible and for letting me do this cool thing.
Well, great. Well, you'll have to find a replacement for you, so.
That's your task, is to find a replacement.
Cool. Yeah, be good.
And then the only other thing I wanted to mention is, as of now, as far as I'm aware, we don't have any cases for December. So, and I think that Jennifer is away. Are you away, Jennifer?
Yes,
You're going
in the Midwest.
Yeah. So, anyway, it might be a good idea for us to just have a Christmas party in December and not have a meeting, but I'll leave that to y'all to discuss.
We do have an action item for December.
Oh, we do. That's right. I forgot. See how I forgot that? Yeah, it's for the Heritage Neighborhood. Never mind. So we got to meet.
We don't have to meet. There's no virtual meeting, so I can't meet, so, well, that's it. Our meeting is adjourned.